Hi, this is the fifth of 5 short talks on how to save the world. We began with the about 3.8 billion years ago with the beginning of life, and we looked at the 3 million years of human existence and how minuscule that is compared to all of the evolution that's gone on before we came into existence. We looked at the 2.8 million years that we lived in Africa, in which we had virtually no environmental impact at all. Then we looked at the 200,000 years as humans migrated around the world. Well, we had a pretty big impact then over that 200,000 years, driving most of the megafauna into extinction. There are some survivors that were too numerous to slaughter, such as the American bison. And then we got into the last 20,000 years, which is when we basically settled down and began to build permanent structures made of stone and brick, building walls, things to keep nature out, that basically claimed things as our own, spaces, land. We said these belong to humans. We have taken them from nature and they will not go back to nature. Now, one of the things that is noticeable about this moment is that not only did we begin to make these structures, but the structures, for the first time in our existence, we were making things bigger than ourselves. We were making houses and then palaces. We made public baths and theaters and stadiums. We made farms, all of which we said this space belongs to us, nature keep out. And it was a male-oriented system. That is, the work needed for these things required the brawn of men. So we cut down forests and made farms, and we mined stones, and we started building these huge structures, these huge areas that belong to us. And we didn't have a major impact on the world, except in local places. An example is in the Tigris-Euphrates Valley, which is about 1,000 miles long and about 250 miles wide, varies of course, more or less the size of Texas. It was a gigantic forest, and it had elephants in it and lions, and we set up habitation around it. We could go in hunting, and then as our farming developed, we cut down forest and turned it into farmland. And over the course of several thousand years, we completely destroyed this most luxurious forest, what the Bible calls paradise, and that the Bible records in the story of Adam and Eve, that they were kicked from Eden. In fact, they kicked themselves out of Eden. And we've continued to build, and you look at our structures, you add them all up, the palaces and houses, and we end up with cities and cathedrals and mosques and stadiums and coliseums, and we've taken a huge amount from nature and made it exclusively ours. But this move to make the world ours got a dramatic kick forward about 300 years ago, when we figured out how to get nature to help us to destroy nature. Previously, we'd use nature, stones, wood, whatever, clay, to make things, but we did the work. About 300 years ago, we figured out how to get nature to do the work. The coal-powered steam engine was invented in 1712, so 300 years ago. And that gave rise, of course, to the Industrial Revolution and powering all sorts of equipment and factories for the production of things that were inanimate and excluded nature. Another invention, 1845, was the cartridge bullet. Previously, we had guns, we had gunpowder, but they were all muzzle loading and there took time between shots. But with the cartridge bullet, we could just unlock the bolt, extract the shell, put in another one, and blam another, something else. It ratcheted up the speed at which we started to harm the natural environment. Probably the perfect example is the passenger pigeon. It was one of the most abundant birds on the planet. Audubon estimated that a single flock he witnessed contained 2 billion birds. But within 70 years from the time that the cartridge bullet was invented, we had driven this species to extinction. Its strategy for survival had been basically the same as the bison. That is, there were so many of them that nothing could kill them. That is, nothing but the cartridge bullet. Another invention was kerosene, a byproduct of which was gasoline. Kerosene was invented in 1859. Gasoline had no uses until the invention of the car in 1892. Within 30 years, there were 9 billion cars on the road, and now there are 1.4 billion cars on the road, all of these spewing fumes into the atmosphere, tires wearing out, putting rubber into the swales, and on and on. We also invented herbicides, pesticides, that is, ways of killing in things that invaded our farmlands, so that we took over more and more land that was for our sons. And all of these inventions were compounded about 100 years ago, in 1928, by the discovery of penicillin. So this is a way of fighting off nature within our own bodies. So you combine all of these inventions and many, many more to produce things and to push back nature and to make it ours. And within the next 100 years, from 1923 to the present, human population has quadrupled from 2 billion to 8 billion. And we have basically all of the major environmental problems have come into existence during this period. It was in 1962 that Rachel Carson published Silent Spring, which showed the harmful effects of pesticides on streams, forests, fauna, and finally led to the ban of DDT. But we just invented more products, and we've made more and more consumption with our coal-powered and gasoline-powered machines and population growth. As a result, since 1970, we have lost or destroyed 68% of the vertebrate wildlife on the planet. Just 3% of the planet's terrestrial surface remains ecologically intact. You could say that we have, in the last 70 years, we have filled the planet. Now the way to look at this, I mean, we haven't filled every seed and every corner or every crevice, but our things are in every crevice, our poisons and toxins and chemical compounds. Think of it this way. Imagine that we were in a huge sports stadium, let's say Michigan Stadium, largest in the country, seating capacity 107,000 people. And we started to blow up a balloon. Well, in the beginning, that wouldn't have much of an impact on people around us. But then we added a machine to help us blow up this balloon, much as we added machinery to help us expand our production of goods. And that after a period of time, this balloon made it so that 68% of the people in that stadium could not see what's going on in the field, which corresponds to the 68% of vertebrate wildlife that's been lost on the planet. Only 3% of that stadium now can see past this gigantic balloon and see what's going on the field. Well, that's the equivalent of what's happening after 20,000 years of capturing space from nature and making it permanently ours. We have filled the planet, which means that we are at the end of this period, of the third period of human existence. First, of course, was living in Africa. Second was migration. This is the third. This is the period of permanent structures, a male-oriented culture, an economic system where we go into nature, we conquer what we want, we make it ours, and then we go off and conquer something else. So in these transitions, we don't know exactly what we're transitioning to any more than when we came down from the trees we knew we were transitioning to or whatever. And transitions are inevitably going to be tumultuous. There's going to be chaos. There probably is going to be violence. But if we keep going the way we're going, it'll be worse. If we try to take something that is a system that is so destructive environmentally and continue on with it, we're going to end up much worse. Here's another analogy. Imagine that you're a runner and you're running along, and you get able to run, you get stronger, and you leap, and you like the view from higher up, and you see a stick, a long stick, a pole, and you grab that pole and you stick it into the ground and you pole vault yourself up to extraordinary heights. And you pass over, well, let's just say there's a bar that exists there. And you can, what we've done is that our goods and services, our economic system, our way of living, our machinery, all of those things have, like a pole, have catapulted us in a way, have leveraged us to unprecedented heights of prosperity. And we have all lived in that weightlessness at the very top, where we look around, we can see far, we can go wherever we want, there's peace and prosperity, but we have separated ourselves so much from nature that nature is starting to pull us back. She's starting to say, no, this is only temporary, guy. Your time has come. That it's time we got back to earth. So what do we do? What do we do? We have two choices. We can hang on to the pole, in which case we're going to knock the bar off the stand and we're going to lose everything we've gained, much of the victory that we have achieved. And in addition, we are going to lever ourselves away from the pit and make a hard landing on the track somewhere else. Or we can let go of the pole and drop into the pit. Now the pit is padded. And that's where that pit, that padded pit, has existed forever, long before men started their economic system. It's the economic system of all the rest of us, where we exchange goods and services, we exchange kindnesses, we share, we help, none of which is paid for, none of which is part of the monetary system. But it's much, much larger than the monetary system. That's the economic, social, political system towards which we should go, and that's the economic, social, political system that has been female-oriented since the beginning of time. Now, for 20,000 years, men have had their way. They've had their jollies, they've had their wars and purges, they've had their inquisitions and holocausts, they've had slavery and ethnic cleansings, they've had bison slaughters and passenger pigeon slaughters and seal slaughters and clear cuts. And the byproducts of all of their machinery and stuff is slaughtering the rest of the world. It's been a long, fine, prosperous run. We've reached an unprecedented level of prosperity. Men have laughed a lot as they've killed a lot. It's time we let go of that system and oriented ourselves towards the female way of doing things. Next time, we're going to talk about the differences, the biological differences between men and women, and what our biology, our genes, our hormones, what they direct us to as a female-oriented economic political system, and how that can help us all thrive and survive far into the future. Thank you.